There's a brand new car sitting on a forecourt somewhere in Britain right now that nobody has ever driven, nobody has ever owned, and nobody is going to buy. Its paint is perfect. The plastic is still on the seats. The odometer reads 11 miles, all of them clocked up by a delivery driver, shuffling it around the compound. And yet, in a strange way, that car is already dying. Slowly, quietly, right there under the showroom lights, while the salesman walks straight past it to shake hands with someone buying the model parked next to it. So what actually happens to those cars? The ones that never sell. The ones that sit and sit while the seasons turn, while a new plate arrives in March and another in September, while the world moves on and forgets they were ever the shiny new thing. You've probably heard the stories. Secret fields packed nose to tail with thousands of unsold motors. Cars getting crushed the moment they go out of fashion. Great automotive graveyards hidden behind fences somewhere off the M25. Some of that is true, some of it is complete nonsense, and the real answer is stranger and a lot more calculating than the rumors ever were. Let me take you behind the fence, because once you understand how a dealer forecourt really works, you'll never look at that gleaming row of new cars the same way again. Here's the first thing most people get wrong. When you see a new car on a dealer's forecourt in Britain, you probably assume the dealer owns it outright, that they bought it from the factory and now they're waiting patiently to sell it on. That's not how it works. Almost none of that stock is paid for. It sits on something the trade calls a stocking plan, which is really just a fancy loan. The manufacturer's finance arm lends the dealer the money to have the car on the lot, and every single day that car doesn't sell, the interest ticks up. It's like renting a flat you're desperately trying to sublet before the next payment lands. The car isn't an asset sitting there making the dealer look prosperous. It's a bill. A bill that grows while it does absolutely nothing but reflect the sky in its bonnet. That's why the trade talks about turning stock. A good dealer wants to sell a car within 60 to 90 days of it landing on the forecourt. Sell it inside that window, and everyone's happy. Miss it, and the whispering starts. The car becomes what they call overage stock, old metal. And old metal on finance is a slow leak in the bottom of the boat. Now, back in 2017, the value of unsold new cars sitting on British forecourts hit £27 billion. 27 billion. That figure had jumped 16% in a single year. Picture that as a physical thing for a second. An ocean of unsold cars, financed to the hilt, all quietly costing somebody money every hour of every day. That's the pressure cooker every dealer principal in the country lives inside. And when the pressure gets high enough, they start reaching for tricks. Clever ones. The cleverest of the lot is a thing called pre-registration. You might have seen it dressed up in the adverts as a nearly new car, or a car with delivery mileage, or a self-reg, or a tactical registration. Different names, same move. Here's what actually happens. A manufacturer sets the dealer a sales target for the quarter. Hit the target, and there's a fat bonus at the end of it, sometimes worth more than the profit on the cars themselves. But the calendar's running out, and the dealer is a few short. So what do? They buy their own cars. They register a batch of them to the dealership itself, on paper, to nobody in particular. The DVLA now sees those cars as sold. The manufacturer sees the target hit, the bonus lands. And the dealer is left holding a row of brand new cars that are technically second-hand before a single customer has ever sat in them. Think about that. The car never moved. Nobody drove it home. But it's already had one registered keeper, the dealership, so the law no longer calls it new. And that one paper stroke knocks thousands of pounds off it instantly, because a car takes its heaviest hit of depreciation the very moment it's first registered. The dealer swallows that hit on purpose, because the bonus was worth more than the loss. Then they put the car back on the forecourt at a discount, sometimes 5% off, sometimes as much as 20% off the list price, and sell it to you as a bargain, a genuinely good bargain, most of the time. Thousands of pounds off a car with barely 200 miles on it. But here's the catch that a lot of buyers never spot. The warranty clock started ticking the day that car was pre-registered, not the day you drive it away. So if a manufacturer gives you 3 years of cover from first registration, and that car sat pre-reg for 8 months before you bought it, you've just quietly lost 8 months of protection before you even turned the key. Same with the breakdown cover. It's not a scandal exactly. It's just the small print nobody reads, and it's the direct fingerprint of a car that didn't sell when it was supposed to. Now, none of that means a pre-reg car strips you of your rights. Quite the opposite. In the eyes of the law, it's still treated as new when you buy it, so your protection under the Consumer Rights Act stays firmly in place. If a fault shows up in the first 30 days, you can simply reject the car and hand it straight back for a refund. Between 30 days and 6 months, The law actually assumes the fault was there all along and puts the burden on the dealer to prove otherwise. So the discount is real, the bargain is real, and your safety net is real. The only thing you genuinely lose is time on the warranty, quietly eaten up while the car stood there waiting for you to walk in. So that's trick 1. When you can't sell the car, register it to yourself and discount it. But not every unwanted car gets that treatment, and the ones that don't have a harder road ahead. And there's one option the dealer definitely doesn't have, which is the one most people assume exists. They can't just send the car back. Once that stock has landed on the forecourt, there's no return slip, no refund from the factory, no undo button. The manufacturer built it, the dealer took it, and now it's the dealer's problem to solve. That single fact is the engine behind everything else in this story. Every trick you're about to hear exists precisely because going backwards isn't allowed. The only way out is forwards, and forwards means finding a body to put in the seat, one way or another. Some of them get quietly folded into the dealer's own operation. That new car that's been loitering too long becomes a service loaner, the courtesy car they hand you when yours is in for a fault. Or it becomes a staff demonstrator, a perk for the sales team, a car one of the managers runs around in for a few months. It's a neat trick, because now the car is getting used, it's getting mileage, and crucially it can be sold on later as a used car with a story that makes sense. Low miles, one careful owner, full history. What the advert won't say is that its first owner was the showroom that couldn't shift it. And then there are the cars that sit, just sit, and this is where the physical toll starts, because a car is a machine that was built to move, and leaving one still for months does real damage. It's the part of this story people underestimate the most. Start with the battery. Leave a modern car standing for more than about a month, and the battery begins to drain all on its own, because a new car is never truly switched off. There's a computer in there, an alarm, a dozen little circuits all sipping power in the dark. Modern motors with their start-stop systems and their constant background electronics are especially thirsty. So the compound crews have to go round jump-starting rows of brand new cars, or trickle-charging them, just to keep them alive. A new car that needs a jump start to leave the forecourt. Let that sink in. Then the tyres. This one genuinely surprises people, and it's one the enthusiast crowd argues about endlessly. When a car sits in one spot for weeks, the weight of the whole thing bears down on the same small patch of each tyre, and the rubber can develop what's called a flat spot. Cold weather makes it worse, and Britain has plenty of that to offer. Go on any owner's forum, piston heads especially, and you'll find people who've spent serious money on a car worrying about exactly this, asking how many weeks of standing it takes before the flat spots set in, and whether they'll ever thump their way out on a motorway run. On a brand new car nobody's driven for half a year, that same quiet damage is happening. One tyre, one flat patch at a time, and it keeps going from there. The engine oil and the coolant and the brake fluid all start to degrade when they're never circulated, never warmed up, never asked to do their job. Petrol left in the tank goes stale and can start leaving gummy deposits in the fuel system. Brake discs, sitting in the damp British air, bloom with a film of surface rust where the pads rest against them. Moisture works its way into places it shouldn't. None of it is instantly fatal. All of it is the slow, silent tax you pay for a car that stands still. The forecourt manager, who says the car is brand new, isn't lying, but that word new is doing an awful lot of heavy lifting when the thing's been parked in one bay since spring. Which brings us to the fields, the famous ones. You've almost certainly seen the photos, or a video with an ominous voice claiming to reveal the truth. Thousands of unsold cars laid out in perfect rows on some abandoned airfield, hidden away so the public never knows how many nobody wanted. And that image is real. It really happens. Old RAF bases like Thurley in Bedfordshire have genuinely been used to store thousands of unsold and stockpiled cars, especially when demand suddenly collapses and the metal has to go somewhere. Back around 2012, the sight of unsold new cars parked nose to tail across anonymous airfields was so common it barely raised an eyebrow in the trade. During the chaos of 2020, when showrooms shut and nobody was buying, the fields filled up all over again. But here's where the story gets bent out of shape online. There's a viral version of this that says those cars are secretly crushed, or buried, or left to rot forever because it's cheaper than selling them. And that part, fact checkers have gone through it more than once, is basically a myth. Manufacturers don't build hundreds of thousands of expensive cars just to bury them in a field. That's not a business, that's a bonfire of money. Those storage fields aren't graveyards, they're waiting rooms. The cars are parked there temporarily, when supply has run ahead of demand, until the market is ready for them, or until they can be shifted somewhere else. The dramatic story of the Great Car Graveyard is one part truth. The fields are real, and about 3 parts internet nonsense. The crushing mostly isn't. So if they're not being buried, where do the genuinely stubborn ones actually go? The cars that won't sell no matter what. This is the part the videos never show you, because it's not dramatic. It's just business, done in the background, at the auctions. When a dealer finally gives up on a piece of overage stock, a huge amount of it flows into the wholesale auction world. And in Britain that world is dominated by names like BCA, British Car Auctions, along with the likes of Aston Barclay and Copart. This is the plumbing of the entire trade, the place cars go to change hands away from the public eye. BCA moves vehicles for the banks, the finance houses, the leasing giants, the contract hire fleets, the manufacturers themselves. A car that couldn't find a private buyer on a suburban forecourt gets driven onto a transporter, taken to an auction hall, and sold in 90 seconds flat to another trader for whatever the hammer says it's worth. The dealer takes the loss, clears the debt off the stocking plan, and stops the daily bleed. It's not glamorous. It's a relief. From the auction, those cars scatter. Some get bought by other dealers in other parts of the country where that exact model happens to be in demand. Manufacturers do this deliberately too, shifting unwanted stock to whichever region or country actually wants it, because a car that gathers dust in Surrey might sell in a fortnight somewhere else, and a chunk of it goes for export. There's a whole industry built around buying British auction cars and shipping them overseas to markets hungry for them. So the new car nobody in Britain wanted might well end up on a boat, driving off into a completely different country's traffic, its story quietly rewritten. And yes, a small number, the genuinely damaged, the ones that got knocked about in storage, the write-offs, do get dismantled for parts, but that's the exception, the end of the line for a few, not the fate of the many. The far more common ending is much less cinematic. The car gets discounted, pre-registered, moved, auctioned, exported, or driven by a salesman for 6 months. It gets absorbed back into the system. It just doesn't get to be the car it was built to be, which is the one parked proudly on your driveway on the day it was still genuinely truly new. There's a question that gets asked on the forums all the time, and it's worth answering plainly, because it's the practical heart of all this. Should you actually be worried about buying a car that's sat unsold on a forecourt for months? A 5-month-old new car, still unregistered, big discount, seems too good to be true, and the honest answer from the people who know is usually no. You shouldn't panic, but you should push for the discount to reflect what that car has quietly been through. Ask when it was built. Ask for a fresh battery if the original's been flattened and revived a dozen times. Get it up to motorway speed on the test drive and feel for any thump from the tyres that might mean flat spots. A car that's been standing isn't ruined. It's just been asleep for too long, and you're within your rights to be paid, in the shape of a bigger discount, for the job of waking it up, because that, in the end, is the real secret behind the dealer lot. It was never about crushing or burying or some grand conspiracy to hide the cars nobody loved. It's far more ordinary than that, and somehow more human. It's a business standing over a very expensive clock that never stops ticking, doing whatever it takes to move the metal before the metal costs more than it's worth. The pre-reg trick, the loaner fleet, the storage field, the auction hammer, the boat to another country, every one of those is just a different exit door out of the same trap. And it's worth remembering the scale of it now, because the pressure has arrived from a brand new direction. The push to electric has made all of this bigger and stranger than ever. In 2025, nearly 500,000 electric cars were registered in Britain, but the industry's own trade body, the SMMT, reckons manufacturers spent over £5 billion discounting them to get there, because the sales targets set by the ZV mandate were running ahead of what real buyers actually wanted. £5 billion of discounts. The head of the SMMT called it unsustainable, and you can see why. That's the pre-registration game and the discount game, the whole thing we've just walked through, playing out on a scale nobody's ever seen before. Rows of unsold electric cars, brand new, gently losing charge, waiting for a buyer who's taking longer than the calendar allows. So the next time you walk past a forecourt and your eye catches that one perfect car sitting a little too quietly at the end of the row, the one with the delivery plates and the plastic still on the seats, take a proper look. It might be the best deal on the whole lot. It might have been standing there for 8 months, warranty clock already running, battery already jump-started twice, tyres just starting to settle. And behind it, out of sight, is that entire hidden machine. The stocking loans and the sales targets and the auction halls and the storage fields, all of it built around one simple, relentless truth. A car that doesn't sell isn't a car anymore. It's a countdown. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever bought a pre-registered or nearly new car and only later realized how long it had actually been sitting? Or have you driven past one of those fields, out near an old airfield, packed with cars, and wondered what on earth was going on behind the fence? Tell me down in the comments, because I read them, and the stories you lot come back with are always better than anything I could make up. If this pulled back a curtain you hadn't thought about before, give it a like so more people stumble onto it, and stick around, because the way we buy cars in this country is changing faster than most of us realize, and there's a lot more going on behind that showroom glass than they'd ever want you to see.